let me introduce you. Well, I'll introduce both of them and then invite them to the stage. The first one is Santiago Paladino. Santiago joined the Ethereum ecosystem back in 2017, so that's a very long time. He's currently working as a principal engineer at Aztec Network, building a private first zero-knowledge rollup, and he serves also as a council member for the Graph. Before that, he was Director of Development and Security Research at Open Zeppelin, helping secure the foundations of many projects that we use today. He's also the author of Ethereum for Web Developers, a book that brought countless builders into this space. And what's particularly interesting for me from Santi's background is that he spent over a decade in Web 2, focusing on disease surveillance and disaster responsive systems. So that's also part of why I wanted him in this talk today. He's a master also in computer science from the University of Buenos Aires, where he also was a professor after that. So welcome, Santi, here on the stage. A round of applause, please. And joining Santi is Sebastián Aldazoro. Sebas leads AI initiatives in Crecimiento, and he's bringing to Crecimiento this unique perspective on how artificial intelligence combines and intersects with blockchain. If you've been to the AI Day, and you probably know him already, he's also an entrepreneur and digital content creator, and he co-founded Sonata, that is the first music client built on Farcaster. What I like about him being here and why I invited him is like he can bring also this cultural aspect. Well, both of them, I think, can bring like more of the cultural and sensitive things into this panel that is not only like technical and crypto. And as we must see a lot of talks that are focused on building, this is like a balanced perspective on that. So thank you, Santi and Sebas, and let's see what you have to say. First, a round of applause for Sebas, too, being here on the stage. Thank you. Cycles.
We have 30 minutes. We've come a long way, huh?
Definitely. Remember how we met each other?
I definitely remember, because I was too shy to speak to you. And all the other guys, all the other OGs at the Ethereum meetup, how many people were we?
It was about 30 of us. I mean, this was 2018. I had been in the space for a year. It's not OG. More people around there? That's awesome, yeah. It's like 30 people, and now we're looking at how many for the Connect?
I think we were expecting 20,000 people to come, plus all the Argentinians, so a few other thousands. And I think 30 was on a good night.
Yeah. And it's even counting the people who just went there for the pizza and beers. Yeah.
Yes.
But yeah, definitely a long way.
Yeah, it was crazy. And like, to me, it was crazy because like I knew nothing about Ethereum. I mean, I only knew that it was amazing and that there was a lot of like brilliant people building, and like I didn't know anything about code, so I would go to the meetups, didn't understand anything, but all of you guys were there and like always like super generous to like, you know, like jump in conversations, like teach everyone. So like it makes a huge difference, I think.
And I think that spirit lives on the community today.
Yeah. So today we need to speak about the cycles, right? We've seen a lot of them. You've seen them all. I saw most of them. So like there are like a lot of similarities, right, between every cycle. It seems like we always run through like these periods of like growth, you know, a bubble that pops, and then like another period when we become more mature in a way.
You could say, yeah. I think the important thing to look into is that we keep building in spite of everything that pops and bursts.
What do you think about like this cycle, like the moment of the cycle we are at right now, like?
So what are the top things of the moment? Like you open newspaper, what's happening today for the average person in crypto?
Libra, probably, right? I mean, it happened a few weeks ago, but probably that like mini explosion, right? Meme coins are bad, Libra is bad, all these things, and like crypto is a scam, like, but we've seen this how many times? Like every cycle, right?
I think I joined in 2017. It was the ICO craze back then, There was a token for everything. Literally everything had a token. There were companies that just rebranded or just added token to their name and their stocks skyrocketed. No one understood what it was for, but there were a lot of scams back then as well. I think the interesting thing about the scams today is that they don't even put any effort. Like back then we had white papers, we had tokenomics, we had real proper ones which were super interesting, and we also had the scam ones. But at the very least, the scam ones tried writing a white paper. Now we don't even get that.
I know. I remember even like the more complex the white paper looked like, it was like, oh, this might be the real thing, right?
Yeah, a lot of that. But yeah, it's like we have seen through the cycle of new coins coming up out of thin space, and we're still going strong, I guess, in spite of all those coins bursting eventually. Sorry, not all, but all the scam ones.
Most of them, yeah. But it was like ICOs at the same time, like, so there was a lot of what you're saying, but at the same time it was like a huge innovation in terms of like raising capital globally with almost no friction, right?
Absolutely, yeah. For many projects, they managed to bootstrap and start working on truly innovative technology that otherwise they wouldn't have been able to.
Yeah, well, like Decentraland is one of those examples, right?
Yeah, one of the big ones that came out of here. I mean, us from Open Zeppelin actually helped them build the infrastructure to run their ICO and their
I didn't know that.
things. Yeah. I had the pleasure to tell Franco that like they had filled their whole ICO in a single Ethereum block. That's how much expectation there was for the launch.
Crazy. It took like 45 seconds, was it? Something like that?
No, like 15 seconds
15
or something.
seconds.
Yeah. I remember the page crashing and having to refresh a couple of times.
Fucking amazing. So like now Decentraland is like a huge project. It's one of the main metaverses. So like a lot of good things emerge, right? As well.
Absolutely.
What other like projects do you remember that thrived after that? I don't know. I remember Aragon, even though it wasn't like widely used. Like they set up like the beginnings of DAOs, all these things. Like what other things do you remember from that cycle?
I'm actually going a bit further back and thinking about the first one, the first DAO, the DAO actually, and how controversial it was after the fork. I think it was the only instance where a security incident was that bad, that damaging to the ecosystem that there was agreement to do a fork. Never again it happened, and we have had our own fair share of hacks since then. I mean, most recent one, Bybit, how much was it?
Billion, was it? How much?
Okay, there you go.
A lot.
A ton of money.
A lot of money.
And again, not first time that happens. Like, I remember from 2017, the famous, I'm not sure, who remembers the meme, I accidentally killed it? Okay, cool.
I accidentally killed it? I don't remember.
I accidentally killed it. It was a meme. Basically, there was a very, very famous multi-sig wallet implementation back then, spearheaded by the Web3 Foundation, Parity basically. Parity had most of their funds in there. And the guy started playing, sending transactions, and bricked it. And he opened an issue on GitHub saying, hey, I think I accidentally killed it. And the guy froze $150 million. I think 90 of those were from the Web3 Foundation. There was whole discussions about, hey, should we fork again or not? We have forked enough things. But point is, security incidents, have happened quite a bunch of times, and we're still going.
Yeah, and it's like, while you're saying that, I'm also like thinking about the amount of money, right? So back then, like the DAO hack, was it, what, 30 million? Something like that?
I think
so now we're talking about like billions, right?
Yeah.
So like that also shows how like even though like scams, blah, 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 the industry like continues to grow nevertheless, right? And that's because there's not only like speculative capital, but also there are like real things, right?
Yeah, but the thing is those 30 million from the DAO were a significant amount of the total ETH in circulation. And now what Bybit...
The total ETH in circulation?
It was a significant amount. And now like the billions that hit Bybit was not even less than half than what the Bybit was managing. So yeah, we have grown a lot also in terms of actual numbers.
A lot. And it's like, it was like, did you feel it was like more like is it still the Wild West nowadays, or was it more the Wild West like in 2017, 2020? We'll get into DeFi summer in a bit.
I think we have matured a lot, especially, I mean, I'm a developer, like from the engineering side of things. We have progressed a lot, like tooling, languages, like the entire ecosystem for building things is far more mature now. It's still chaotic, but we have gone a very, very, very long way. Like I remember my first assignment, my first job when I joined crypto to OpenZeppelin was auditing the Serpent compiler. Serpent was a language that predated Viper. It was its predecessor. I knew nothing about auditing. I knew nothing about compilers. I knew nothing about crypto.
You didn't know anything?
I had no idea about anything. We broke it. We tore it down to pieces to the point that 2 weeks later, Vitalik was tweeting, "I no longer recommend Serpent." That's how broke things were. And this was an actual language used in production, by the way.
So how come you broke it? Like, because you... Like,
we looked at the code of the compiler for 5 minutes, really. No,
and you just broke it?
Yeah, like things were really immature back then. Like tooling, like everything you work with, it was clearly put together fast because Ethereum was super new and we're still learning. And we have come a very long way. There is still a lot more maturity needed. But yeah, things have definitely improved and keep improving.
And how was it like, before we dive into like the 2020 cycle, like how was it? Because like back then I worked in VC and I was into crypto because I was like on Twitter and I was going to the meetup. I had gone to the ETHBA hackathon, which was really, really important, I think, for the Argentinian community. How was it being an Argentinian, like being able to, like being one of the main developers on Earth, right? Because it was you, it was Mariano Conti at MakerDAO. I think even like he launched the first DAI, right? I think. So like, how was it being part of that, like, you know, small community of Argentinians that were like building the future back then? You still are, right? But there was way less people back then in the world, and you guys were doing it. How do you feel like?
I feel flattered by being put in the same equivalence class as Mariano. I don't think I'm worth it. But that's what drew me to crypto on the first place. Like seeing it was such an immature space that it was at that stage, and still it was possible to make a concrete impact even from here in the corner of the world. Like it combined both things, immaturity and decentralization, that it was possible to influence it even from here.
Yeah, amazing. That's what drove me to, like, when before the meetup, I think started Ethereum BA in 2019. 2018 was the hackathon, right? ETHBA, I think.
Yeah, or even before. I'm not sure, but even yeah, around that time, yeah.
And I remember I went there as a volunteer, and like they wouldn't let me in because I'm not a developer. So it was like, no, you cannot come. And I didn't want to ask favors, so I just wanted to like find my way in. And so I spoke to the guy who was organizing, like, I want to be a volunteer. He ended up saying, like, if you come at night, 12 to 8 a.m., you can come. And I was like, of course. And then when I got there and I saw all of you guys, and I was like, dude, I cannot fucking believe it. Like we cannot tap into Silicon Valley, into all these like things, but here it's like a bunch of Argentinos fucking building this thing. And it was so amazing, like mind-blowing.
I think something super important in what you said is you are not a developer, you just push and you got into it. That's something that we've seen like in crypto much more than any other spaces. Like crypto is not just the technology, not just for developers. Like there is so many different ways to contribute and to help build. Yeah, we'll see it across all the different cycles.
Yeah. So let's move a bit into like DeFi summer. So DeFi summer was 2020, and then NFTs was 2021, right?
Around that, yeah.
So?
I used like for bookmarking when SushiSwap launched for DeFi summer, and when the sketch from Saturday Night Live on NFTs was published for the NFT craze. They were 2020 and 2021, yeah.
Anyone here remembers SushiSwap and the vampire attack?
Cool.
Yeah.
Let's walk through it for the ones that don't
remember. Well, SushiSwap, do you want to... So Uniswap, everyone knows what Uniswap is, like the major DEX in the world, has, I think, more volume than Coinbase. They launched V4 recently, or V5 before. There's a meetup today if you want to come in the afternoon for Uniswap. And everyone had started like launching tokens, right? I remember, I'll back like just a second. I remember the exact minutes when the DeFi summer started, because I was a journalist back then, and I was working for the Defiant, the newsletter by Cami Russo from Chile. So I was like so there were a couple other writers who were like super good, and I was just getting started, and I didn't understand anything about DeFi. Like, this is so fucking complex. So there was this day that I didn't have any articles, so like, the other guys had like main articles, and I'm like, hey Cami, I can write a small article about comp. Comp is Compound's governance token. And she's like, well, why would you write about comp? Like, who cares? And no one cared in the editorial room. And I'm like, I don't know, it's like a compound token, so it's a little interesting. And like, then they launched during the day, and it went to like 1 billion valuation in like 1 hour, and it was like, no, this has to be the main article tomorrow, blah, 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 blah. And that like ignited like everyone launching their tokens, blah, blah, blah. But Uniswap, they were not launching a token, and like the insiders were saying, like, they are not going to launch a token, so SushiSwap, they forked them, right? They forked Uniswap.
Yeah, it was a copy of the code.
But they said, we're gonna give you a token, right? If you bring on your liquidity here. So that was a vampire attack. Like, we're gonna pay you to bring on the liquidity. But something different happened, right? They didn't steal the liquidity.
Yeah. The total TVL actually increased. It actually drew more people into Ethereum itself, into the entire ecosystem. It was amazing. And the interesting thing there is that, like, initially it was a copy of the code. Then they had their own set of improvements, which were quite interesting. But it was all incentives and memes and proper communication, and they managed to build billions of dollars around that. It was impressive.
Yeah, and they did it in like, what, like a few weeks, right?
Yeah, and sparked DeFi summer, and then we had all these food tokens and pickles and yaps, and I can't remember all the freaking names, but yeah.
I remember a close friend of us telling me on Telegram, like, oh, I'm farming this sashimi token.
That wasn't me. No.
Sashimi. Not gonna give names, but it was a crazy time, right? And we also saw a lot of like scams back then, right? Because
as always,
a lot of like like sashimi and all of this like other stuff that were like, yeah.
I think that's one of the constants, right? Like, whenever you have one of these bull cycles that you capture a lot of public attention, scammers jump into it. Like, crypto is fertile ground. Like, one of the side effects of decentralization and not having proper regulations and the like is like, it's really easy to run a scam. We need to do a better job at education to protect the average person from that.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, did you want to add something?
No, please.
Yeah, and at the same time, like, so besides the sushi swap, I remember, I don't know, like Yearn Finance, for example.
Yeah.
Anyone remembers Yearn? Yes. Cool, few people remember Yearn. Yeah. So they invented, like, I think, fair launches, right?
Yeah. To this day, I'm not sure if fair launches are a thing or a meme, or if there is any difference between the two, to be honest. But yeah, it was quite huge back then in terms of like properly giving the community the token, having no pre-allocation, nothing left for insiders.
Yeah, it was. So it's like all those things happened, but then like as we got more mature, like, now we have like really solid products, right? So Uniswap has become this monster. Like, MakerDAO is like not even Maker now, right? It's a Sky, and like we have all this like very valuable infrastructure that Aave, all these things that are like major products, right?
But to me, the amazing thing is not like we have been talking about all these protocols that were like at the forefront of what happened in 2020, 2021, even 22. But there was a lot of work behind the scenes happening to make it even stronger. Like, we had a famous EIP 1559, which led to the meme of ultrasound money, of ETH becoming deflationary, on having a much better user experience in terms of sending a transaction, getting it mined instantly.
When was that exactly?
EIP 1559.
But when, yeah?
2021. And the merge in 2022, that's basically, hey, we stop doing proof of work. We stop burning trees for sending a transaction, which was amazing. And just think of the amount of money that miners were moving, like there were entire industries built on top of that. And in a decentralized way, as a protocol, we managed to migrate from that into something completely different. And this was all happening behind the scenes of all these projects on NFTs, on tokens, on DeFi that were happening. This was the actual backbone that they were running on.
Yeah, and pulling, so sometimes like there's a lot of like criticism of like of Ethereum and coordination, and it gets so complex, and there's no like the foundation doesn't blah blah blah, all these things. But at the same time, it's like all these people around the world like coordinating to make the fucking merge happen, right? It
was amazing.
Fucking amazing.
Yeah. It shows that it was not just a technical feat. It was also a coordination feat. It was an economic feat. Like the merge proof of stake works on economic incentives, and it required the work of a lot of very smart people to actually model and understand that what we were shipping was reasonable, would actually work once put into production with the proper incentives. And yeah, this all happened in a centralized way, like coordinated by the foundation in a way.
I remember, so like we were talking about the meetup, and we were like 20 people, 30, whatever, and you're mentioning the merge. I remember that the day the merge happened was the day that we were opening the ETH LATAM conference, which was the first huge conference. I remember because we were all there, like talking, like first the meetup, then this massive conference.
Yeah.
And that day or that night before was when it happened. And
yeah, the merge party.
Yeah. So amazing. But at the same time, like it's like the pendulum balances, right? Because like we were seeing the merge, but also Terra happened that same year.
2022 as well. Yeah. Again, like scams at the forefront of the newspapers on what's happening, and the big improvements. The builders keep building, maybe without so much publicity, without being so much in the open. But I think that's the positive thing to highlight. Even if your mom asks you about, hey, what's this crypto scam, and doesn't ask you, hey, what's proof of stake? Proof of stake still happen, and these advancements, all these things keep happening in the background. Bull cycles make it more difficult to separate, I think, signal from noise because of the amount of noise happening. But the signal is constant. It's always there, and it keeps moving forward. I think that's the important thing to always keep in mind through bear markets as we are now.
Yeah. Even like through like NFTs too, right? Which came right after like DeFi summer, and in the end, like a lot of people were saying it's all scams. Like people were mad about like the apes and all these things. But at the same time, like it demonstrated, I think, tell me what you think, like it demonstrated like you can tokenize culture, you can tokenize like attention, you can tokenize all these things that we didn't know we could create markets around, right? And we can like onboard artists, we can onboard culture, we can do all these things at the same time that we are seeing the scams, right?
Yeah, I think the interesting thing is that we opened the door to yet another role, yet another persona to the Ethereum ecosystem that was the artist that could had a way for monetizing their work. Yeah,
and like since we're mentioning artists from that time, like I'll mention like the CryptoArg collective, which was like pretty massive back then, like a bunch of like Argentinian, so not only developers but also Argentinian artists, like I don't know, Frenetic Void and a bunch of others that were like top in the world, like by volume on all the major marketplaces and stuff. So it's like now that I'm thinking, it's like the Argentinians were involved not only in developing, not only in writing, not only in community, but also like in art.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So where are we today? What do you think?
Where are we today, aside from Libra and Bybit?
Yeah, I think everyone knows what happened there, right?
Yeah. You would expect the head of state is better advised about this kind of things, right? Let's not get into it anyway. I think that we have a bunch of different things to look into where we're sitting now and how we're sitting like several years ago. To me, like usability is one of the things where we have improved a lot. We still have a lot of improvement needed, but 2016, I installed my first Ethereum wallet. It was Mist Wallet.
Uh-huh.
It included a get node because you had to run your own node in order to use it.
To have a wallet?
To have a wallet.
You had to run your own Ethereum node?
I had no idea what was happening. I downloaded a wallet that I saw on ethereum.org. It was missed. It started running a node on my machine. And for some reason, it managed to completely burn my hard drive by running the node.
Fuck.
And that's how I lost the first ETH I ever bought. Because, do you really need this backup thingy? Good thing is I learned at the very, very beginning that, yes, you do need that backup.
Damn.
And now we have, we went through a lot of iterations. We saw experiments like burner wallets, like social recovery, people from Argent, from many different companies built. And now we're talking about new IPs coming up to revolutionize what can be done in terms of account abstraction, of authentication, of social recovery, of gas fee sponsoring. Not just that. It's amazing all these improvements happening in Ethereum. But also in rollups. Like, rollups initially came to solve the scalability problem, but they also became fertile ground for experimentation. Like, let's say you have an innovation you want to try that involves a protocol change. You can try it in a rollup today. And it has a lot less friction actually deploying on Ethereum. And requires a lot less coordination. So I think that we're at the stage where we have done a tremendous amount of progress, and we also have everything laid out to keep iterating even faster. Talking about rollups, the original ideas for scalability were state channels, counterfactual deployments, plasma, a lot of buzzwords that 2018, 19 were everywhere. Now it's rollups.
Casper, was it?
Casper eventually became part of the merge. That's one of the few that got in, actually. Sharding, I remember a talk by Vitalik on DevCon in Osaka about how Ethereum was going to run 64 different shards. And that was kind of in favor of rollups. And now we have an architecture that, hey, kind of works.
It kind of works, yeah. And it's like, feels to me, and we were just talking about this, like we are, I think, maybe like becoming more mature, maybe, right, as an industry. So I love the Carlota Perez framework I was telling you about. Maybe people know it, but Carlota Perez is this like scholar. She has this like framework for technological revolutions where like they go through a frenzy period, like there's a lot of financial capital, then it blows up. There's a crash, everything thinks it died, and then like it starts the maturity and deployment phase where you have more productive capital and you have like less scams and all these things. And it happened with the internet, it happened with the Industrial Revolution, it happened with all these industries. And I think maybe, a lot of people think that maybe that same thing is happening now, right? So we are starting to, like for example, decentralization. We were always like really like cyberpunk about it, right? Historically, like it's the most important thing and all these things. But now we are seeing like open finance is not so, it's semi-decentralized, right? All these things, like, do you think we're getting more pragmatic?
I think, that's the key word. It's pragmatism in terms of looking at how we approach things. I think that 5 years ago, we didn't think of having a regulation day in an Ethereum conference, for instance, or actually like knocking the door of the government saying, hey, like, we want to build something reasonable. And I think it's, on one hand, it feels like a compromise of the original cypherpunk ideals. On the other hand, it feels like going closer to pragmatism, to reality, to what needs to happen for crypto to become mainstream.
Like maybe playing with the rules. So trying to bend the rules, break them, but at the same time, like playing according to the rules. Like both things maybe at the same time, right?
Or defining new ones, which is what's needed.
Creating new rules. I really like that. So like, how are we on time?
Hello?
No worries. How much time do we have? Maybe 2 minutes?
Oh, okay.
Do you want to close? Do you want to take a question?
I wanted to pitch in privacy just because I'm working on privacy. But yeah, privacy is important, guys. You know that.
Pitch privacy. It's really important.
Yeah.
Go for it.
No, I think that in recent times there has been like a return to privacy. There's this article by Vitalik, The Three Transitions, in which one of the pillars that he says that we need to evolve in as a community is bringing back privacy. It's weird that you go and, assuming that you find a merchant where you can buy a cup of coffee with your assets, that, hey, that merchant can see your entire financial history. Like privacy is something pretty critical to have. And yeah, I think I'm personally working on it from Aztec, but also it's also interesting to see other projects working on it, and also paving the way for programmable cryptography, which is not just zero knowledge, which is the current buzzword, but also other technologies like FHE, MPC, or even TEs if you want to put them there, but that's another story. The interesting thing about it is you get typically like math-heavy constructs into the hands of vanilla engineers. And what excites me about that is that it exceeds blockchain. Like those are things that you can deploy anywhere, not just in the context of a blockchain. And like seeing like these new tools, these new building blocks, they can open up a new bunch of very, very interesting things.
I love that. So we can say that the future privacy will be a huge component, or like should be. I mean, I'm on board with that. I think it's key, not only in crypto, right? In general, with the technology like realm in which we are living. We have already seen this, so we will overcome, and new innovations will come, and we will continue to grow in a more mature way, maybe?
We'll keep building.
We'll keep building.